Today I'm with Brett at Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary and I'll be talking about their work to help save fig parrots in the wild. So can you run through a bit of what fig parrot will go through in its early life?
Yeah, so these guys pretty much always lay 3 eggs. So they'll incubate those eggs, chicks hatch out. They're predominantly fig feeders in the wild, as you'd probably expect from the name. So they'll be feeding those chicks up and they'll leave the nest after a few weeks, and they're independent by about 2 months of age. So being a very small bird, they grow and reach independence at a quite young age.
So whereabouts can fig parrots be found in the wild?
So the two of the species are quite northern species, so they're found up around Cape York, right up the north end in the tropical areas for the most part.
So how endangered are fig parrots and what are the threats?
So the other 2 species are quite relatively common out in the wild. The Coxswain's fig parrot, the one found more locally here, is actually critically endangered. So they estimate that in total their numbers are probably under about 250, and that's split across about 3 different populations that are very isolated. So each little population's only got about 50 birds or so. Yeah, so most of the threats that are impacting that is largely to do with the loss of habitat. So these guys, they think were more commonly found on sort of the lowland rainforest areas, which a lot of that has been lost to development and farming and other impacts. So that seems to be the major impact on these small parrots.
So what is Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary doing to help save fig parrots?
So since 1988, Currumbin's actually had a fig parrot breeding program.
Wow.
So we acquired a pair of your Maclay's fig parrots way back then, almost 30 years ago. And ever since that, we've been working basically to try and establish good husbandry and breeding success, because very little was known about these guys, exactly what they feed on and their life cycle and those types of things. So the idea was to try and work with these guys, build up all that information, and then if the opportunity arose, we could hopefully be ready to work with the Coxswain's fig parrot, because even back then they knew they were extremely rare. So the chances of getting any brought into captivity are quite low, and if it does happen, we want to be 100% ready to go so we can have the best success possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've continued that program on right to this day. Every season we successfully breed, keep that population going, which means we've got animals that are always good breeders. So even if someone was to find an abandoned nest in the wild and had to take eggs, or we got the opportunity, we might have a pair that's breeding, ready to go, and we can try and get them to raise those offspring naturally.
So what can people at home do to help save fig parrots?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is obviously to try and work towards limiting our impact on the environment. So the biggest threat to these guys being the loss of habitat. There's not any one major thing that people can do on an individual level to make a massive difference to the likes of these guys, but everyone putting a little bit in, trying to conserve these areas and make sure that the habitat that is left is protected. And then if you do happen to spot these guys out in the wild, if you know what you're looking for, and you do think you've spotted them, you can report it to the government, and they actually will send someone out to try and verify, see if there's a nest or some breeding animals out in an area, because obviously if they did find that, they'd want to make sure that that was very well protected and looked after.
Well, thank you for talking to me today.
That's all right, no worries at all.